Hey everyone, welcome back to the Huddle, brought to you by Play USA. My name's Nicole here with
Ian St. Clair.
And we have missed you the past 2 weeks, but we hope you had a really happy holiday season, took some time off like we did to spend time with friends and family, and probably watch a lot of NFL the past 2 weekends. But we are back at it and ready to chit chat. What has gone on in the NFL this past week? How was your vacation, Ian?
It was great, minus the fact that it was another one of those wackadoo weeks where the Colts somehow lose to the Raiders and basically a win and get in the playoffs, which I did not see that coming. And then you can't talk about the last week without talking about what happened with Antonio Brown at MetLife Stadium.
And we absolutely will cover that today because we just, like you said, we can't not cover that.
Yeah, and it's just going to continue to evolve and get even weirder, I think, as the days progress. As Andrew Brandt says, the longtime executive with the Packers and sports lawyer, always says on Twitter, there will be lawyers.
There already were lawyers. And I will say, well, actually, I'll just save it for our Antonio Brown segment because I have a lot of things to say about it. But yeah, I had a good holiday, spent some time with friends and family. As we know, this next wave of the virus seems to be spreading quickly. So as always, just stay safe. But we hope that you were able to spend some good time with your loved ones. Without further ado, should we take it into the worst of the week?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So this one for me is more emotional based off performance, but I felt like I couldn't leave it out this week. And it happened to be Ben Roethlisberger's final performance, final time taking the field at Heinz Stadium. And you know what? It wasn't as bad of a performance as it could have been. We scored points in the first half of the game. So already that was an improvement for what we've done over, I believe it was the past 5 weeks. But yeah, I think we've talked a lot of crap. I've definitely done my fair share of crap talking about Ben this season. And I think it was justified. It wasn't his best performance. But if you are a longtime Steelers fan like myself, this guy has put everything into the organization the last 18 years and is pretty much the only quarterback I've ever known or I will remember as a child from this team. And he's won us 2 Super Bowls. And, it's going to be sad to see him go. I think his send off was probably the best it could have been. He was able to take a knee. He walked around the stadium giving people high fives. So it was an emotional weekend for me. But now that my mini violin is over, we have to see what this organization is going to do going forward and what their solution is to the problem of now that we don't have a quarterback.
And my worst of the week is the Denver Broncos, hence why I'm wearing Avalanche get up. Because this is actually a team that can compete and contend and is actually good. The Broncos solidified their 6th straight season with no playoffs, their 5th straight losing season. So to give you an idea of how historical this is, from 1983 to 2016, let's say 2015, that was the time Pat Bowlen owned the Denver Broncos. They had 5 losing seasons the entire time he was the owner. The Broncos have now had 5 straight losing seasons.
Oh, no.
6 straight losing seasons. It is the first time in NFL history a team to win the Super Bowl then proceeds to miss the playoffs the next 6 seasons. 6 straight seasons.
Setting records you don't really want to set for a franchise, and not the type of records you want to be known for.
No, and the Broncos typically are known for setting records on the good side of it. That's what Pat Bowlen instilled as the owner of the Broncos. The stat that is just crazy to me is under his ownership, they had more Super Bowl appearances than losing seasons. And that is now gone. So hopefully the Steelers have a better plan in place to find a quarterback than the Denver Broncos have had, because here we are 6 years after Peyton Manning retired and they still don't have a quarterback.
Well, I believe Mike Tomlin has now officially gone 15 straight seasons without a losing record, which is amazing. I wish
That's incredible.
That is absolutely incredible. And we know that the Steelers organization is extremely loyal to their coaches. I think I have known 2 coaches in my lifetime, which were Cowher and Tomlin.
And then before that, there's 3.
I was going to say, yeah.
Chuck Noll.
Yeah, I was going to say. And then I was talking to my mother and she was like, well, I don't really know that many more. So that just goes to show coaches. You it's
3
insane.
Since the 70s.
It's insane. But I really feel like this is my thing. And we've talked about this before with the Steelers, but they're kind of in a pickle because if you're looking at this draft class, people aren't really impressed, I would say, with the quarterbacks coming out. There's not really this true first rounder. Like everyone knows he's a lock. He's going first as the first quarterback. We don't really seem to have that this year with the draft. So what do? Do you just allow Mason Rudolph to kind of take the helm this year, or Dwayne Haskins, or do you actually go out there and try to draft, you're saying draft a quarterback and see what they have, even though it might not be, this amazing pick like everyone thought Trevor Lawrence was going to be?
Exactly. I'm not a draft guru. I'm not into the draft at all because I've joked that I'm lucky that I get to watch the NFL. If I added college football to that, I'd be divorced. So I will say that this reminds me of the Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Mitch Trubisky draft. I think that was 2017, I think, or 2016. One of those two. It wasn't a ballyhooed quarterback draft class, but it's turned out to be, you have Patrick Mahomes, and I will forever say that Ryan Pace traded up in the draft to get Mitch Trubisky when he could have had Patrick Mahomes. And all of my nightmares of the Chiefs winning a Super Bowl would not be there because Patrick Mahomes would not be in Kansas City. He would be in Chicago. So thanks, Ryan Pace.
There have been rumblings, and by rumblings, in my household, in my own household, of the Steelers taking Deshaun Watson.
That's a dicey scenario based on all of his off the field stuff. He was rumored to be going to the Broncos. I did all kinds of odd stories on Sportsbooks having the Broncos as the favorite to get Deshaun Watson last offseason. If he can get that figured out, I have no doubt that he'll be one of the top people, one of the top quarterbacks that teams look after. A team in the division that the Steelers play in that could potentially go after him that I've seen linked to Deshaun Watson is the Cleveland Browns.
Well, if we kind of look at this trajectory of now what's happening as we're coming toward the end of the season, we see Deshaun Watson kind of making his first public appearance last week at his girlfriend's, birthday party. He hasn't really been seen out in public this whole time, which leads you to believe that there has been some sort of settlement or they're figuring out some way to get these legal issues solved. Not making a statement on the legal issues at all, but just saying that based off of what we're kind of seeing, which is we have rumors now that he'll be going, to a team next year, and now he's making public appearances. It leads you to believe that some of these legal issues that he was facing, they've found some sort of solution to them, whether you agree with them or not.
Absolutely. And it's going to be a very interesting offseason. There's 2 other names that are going to get thrown around, even if there's nothing to it. Aaron Rodgers with the Packers.
Yes.
And then the one that's very interesting from my perspective, because he's been linked to the Broncos a lot, is Russell Wilson with the Seattle Seahawks. I can't under any scenario see Seattle choosing Pete Carroll over Russell Wilson. It reminds me of the John Elway, Dan Reeves scenario in the early 90s. And we just lost Dan Reeves, who should be in the Hall of Fame. But I can't see the Seahawks moving on from Russell Wilson, but we'll see. I would love to have him as the quarterback of the Denver Broncos, and we finally have a quarterback here in Denver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's going to be a lot. It seems like there's going to be a lot of drama and a lot of things to keep us entertained in the off season. Do you have anything else for worst of the week?
You mentioned Mike Tomlin having 15 straight winning seasons. Vic Fangio does not have a winning season. And there's talk that he'll be coming back because he's proven in the 3 years that he's been a head coach that he should be coming back, having not had a winning season. It's going swimmingly here in Denver.
I would love to have a CV like that, or a resume like that, and just people vying for me with absolutely nothing to prove my experience. It's like if you say, in a work interview that you're good with Excel, and then they just take you at face value, then they, you're just praying that they actually don't ask you, oh, what do you know how to do in Excel? Because should they ask you that,
give you an Excel quiz.
We're going to be SOL. So
yeah, you give it, they give you an Excel quiz and you fail it.
Yeah.
But you still get the job because you told them that, hey, I'm good at Excel. I didn't prove it. But
I have opened Excel before. I know what it is. I know the icon. So I've worked in the NFL before, and I'm great at it. So we'll see. We'll see if he gets another job. A lot of worst of the week. A lot of stuff going on in the NFL right now.
A lot, which from a betting perspective, it's been crazy just because you get those heavy favorites, and more often than not, at least once a week, they don't cover, and it just throws everything for a loop. Those money line parlays, although the Buccaneers and Tom Brady saved a lot of them with him coming back the way that he did after the whole Antonio Brown fiasco on the sideline. So it's been a crazy season from the get-go.
And speaking of Antonio Brown, I feel like that is the perfect segue into our Take It to Twitter segment. How do you feel?
Well, at least I'm not a Buccaneers fan, so we can get into it.
If you are a Buccaneers fan, we'll get into the AB fiasco, but if you are a Buccaneers fan, yes, AB has been very productive for you and your team this season. But also, you do have quite a deep roster when it comes to wide receivers. And they were kind of talking about it in the game. Like, okay, well, Antonio Brown's out. So now you have, they were listing their first, second, and third, and they won the game, and you have Tom Brady leading your team. So I think overall, and you just won a Super Bowl, so you'll be okay.
And you mentioned the depth at receiver. They just lost Chris Godwin to a knee injury, which completely blew up my chances in our fantasy playoffs because he was my number one receiver. They still have Mike Evans. Leonard Fournette is out. Levante David is going to be coming back. Leonard Fournette will be coming back. So this is a team, obviously the number one seed in the NFC is the Green Bay Packers. So teams are going to have to go on the road and beat Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in Lambeau Field. Well, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers did it last season. So they've been there, done that. So it's going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a very interesting team to look at heading into the playoffs, especially now that Antonio Brown is not around.
And let's just go ahead and talk about why he's not around, just for anyone that might have missed it this last week. So if you were watching the Bucs game last weekend, then you saw Antonio Brown come onto the sidelines in the middle of the game, which is okay. That's normal. And then all of a sudden he starts taking off his jersey, taking off his shoulder pads, and then eventually takes off his shirt as well, runs into the end zone while the game is going on, flashes a peace sign to the audience, and then runs into the locker room. So you have announcers are absolutely stunned because they don't know what's going on. They're trying to figure out if this is actually a penalty for the Buccaneers. Comes out that actually it's not a penalty. Maybe he'll get fined, but he didn't really interfere with the game. And now, you know what? Why don't you just go ahead and take a look? We have a clip here for you.
Very odd that situation. Antonio Brown boiled over, very upset on the sideline, took off his shoulder pads. Mike Evans, O.J. Howard trying to convince him to keep them on. Obviously, they were unable to do so. He tossed his shoulder pads, stripped off his shirt and glove, threw those into the crowd, then ran across the field while the teams were still on the field, giving the crowd a peace out sign. I'll let you know when we hear something official on his status.
Thank you.
But yeah, so it wasn't a penalty, wasn't a fine, and now all hell has broken loose on Twitter with not only people trying to speculate what caused him to have these antics, but now we're getting more and more coming out from Antonio Brown and his lawyers about what his side of events were versus what the Buccaneers side of events were.
And as we're recording this, we're getting the Buccaneers side of things. So it has now turned into Antonio Brown and his lawyer are saying what happened. And now the Buccaneers, as I said, as we are recording this, are stating what happened from their perspective. Adam Schefter has a thread that said last week, Antonio Brown and his agent requested that the remaining $2 million in incentives in his contract for this season be guaranteed per Bucs GM Jason Licht. The team declined to guarantee those incentives. Antonio Brown did not tell anyone on the Bucs medical staff about his ankle bothering him on game day, before the game against the Jets, or during it. Buccaneers made what they call reasonable accommodations to bring this matter to a close early this week, if in fact Antonio Brown had an injury from the game and the wide receiver declined to cooperate. And of course, Antonio Brown and his lawyer have said that the medical staff basically forced Antonio Brown to play. And obviously now the NFLPA is going to investigate this. So it's turning into a he said, and however it ends up, nobody knows.
Yeah, so it's kind of a mess. I mean, first Twitter kind of was speculating that Antonio Brown did have some bonuses coming his way. I believe it was about $1 million in bonuses should he have been able to stay on the field and complete certain milestones. So I believe he needed about 50 more receiving yards, as well as a touchdown or a few more to get to unlock these. I believe each one was about $333,000. So if I think he had 3 left, these bonuses. So people were saying that Arians and team benched him because they didn't want him to hit the milestones and pay out these bonuses. So that was one speculation. Obviously, the CTE argument was all over Twitter with Antonio Brown had a really bad hit from Burfict a few years ago, and everyone's kind of said he hasn't been the same since. So the CTE argument was thrown in there. And then you had Bruce Arians basically saying that he refused to play initially, that he was refusing to play. And they said, if you're refusing to play, then you're cut. Antonio Brown then came out and said, I was refusing to play because I had an injury, and they were ignoring the injury. Then people were saying, well, then why were you running off the field if you had an ankle injury? Like you said, it has been an absolute mess. We're getting statements from lawyers. We're getting screenshots of text messages from Antonio Brown, which, by the way, we'll put it up here for you, but Antonio Brown sends a screenshot out on Twitter of an exchange between himself and Tom Brady's trainer. And Antonio Brown is essentially firing Tom Brady's trainer and asking him to refund the $100,000 that he paid. The trainer comes back and says, hey man, it was a pleasure working with you. Sorry, it didn't work out like we expected. Please let me know where to send the remaining balance. So everyone on Twitter is wondering, did Antonio Brown misinterpret what the trainer was saying? Because it sounded like the trainer was going to give him a refund. It is a mess. It is an absolute mess.
And it's going to continue to be a mess. And now the fact that he's throwing Tom Brady under the bus too. Bold move, Cotton. We'll see how it pays off for him.
Yeah, especially when Tom Brady was rather sympathetic to you in his press conference after that game and basically said, hey, we don't know what he's going through. And listen, I feel how you want to feel about Tom Brady, but I thought it was a pretty mature response for a quarterback that has just had his number one wide receiver strip off half of his clothes and peace out during the middle of the game. So pretty, mature response and sympathetic response. And then to tag him in a text message where it seems like you were going to get your money back. I don't really know what's going on, but I think Antonio Brown should just let his lawyer stick to putting out the statements on his behalf, because they seem to make much more sense than what he puts out himself.
Yes. And I don't want to get into the whole CTE thing. That's going down a slippery slope because we don't have any idea. It was a brutal hit from Vontaze Burfict in that playoff game against the Bengals. The Steelers went on to win that game, and then they came to Denver without Antonio Brown. And that was a big reason I think the Broncos won that divisional round in 2015, is because they didn't have Antonio Brown. If you look at what happened a couple of weeks before that in that season, Antonio Brown completely destroyed Chris Harris Jr., who was one of the no-fly zone cornerbacks for that great secondary that the Broncos had that season with Aqib Talib. And I'm completely forgetting the other two safeties at this point because we've been through complete hell in Broncos country the last 6 years. But that was a big reason I think the Steelers lost that game against the Broncos, was they didn't have Antonio Brown. Now, we'll see what happens. It's already turning into what we all thought it was going to be, which is an NFL soap opera. And the conclusion, at least now, Antonio Brown has been officially released by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that's taken care of. We'll see what happens now.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, it's going to be a lot of he said, and these lawyers are going to be going back and forth, and the NFLPA will investigate. So we'll see. It just seems as if there's always drama following this certain player, but you can't deny that he produces when he is on the field. So we'll see what happens. That's all I had, but I believe you had something that you wanted to add for Take It to Twitter.
And this is going to be another one of those, you're going to get heated. You pick your sides.
You do pick your side on this one.
So Aaron Rodgers has obviously been in the headlines throughout the entire season. He's, even before all of this, before the season started, with his whole immaculated, vaccinated, whatever.
Speculate, recolate.
Yeah. And then it comes out that he wasn't, and he misled the media and his team. Well,
he's immunized.
Yeah. And so he missed a game, wasn't able to play. Jordan Love played against the Chiefs. They lost that game. I mean, obviously it didn't impact it too much because the Packers are still the number one seed. And I don't think there's any doubt that Aaron Rodgers has been one of the best players in the NFL this year. I would argue what Tom Brady is doing in Tampa Bay at the age that he is at is incredible. And then you have Jonathan Taylor. You also have Cooper Kupp. And if Derrick Henry stays healthy, he's probably the no doubt MVP of the NFL, but he's now coming back. So I don't think I would want to play the Titans in the playoffs. But that brings up the MVP, and the voting is going to happen after this weekend. That's when the 50 voters who are picked by the Associated Press vote for who the MVP is. And Hub Akush, who is the executive editor for Pro Football Weekly, was on a Chicago radio show where he does a daily, weekly show, and he said that Aaron Rodgers is not a good guy and he's not going to vote for him. And it obviously blew up because he covers the Bears. He's in Chicago, so Packers fans immediately are like, "Oh, shocking! A Bears writer does not like Aaron Rodgers." I don't think it's that simple. I think it's more just the fact that he had his opinion and he shared it. What I find ironic is when Aaron Rodgers did his weekly appearance on the Pat McAfee show, throughout this entire season, when Aaron Rodgers has gone on Pat McAfee's show, he shared his opinions, highly questionable opinions. I don't agree with any of them, but he has the right to share them. He has claimed that he's been canceled for his anti-science, anti-vaccination, anti-COVID, all that stuff. he said that he has been canceled. I find it
By
highly
the woke
ironic.
mob.
I find it highly ironic that when someone has an opinion about him, he wants to cancel him. Aaron Rodgers said that Hub Arkush should lose his vote for the MVP.
And to be honest with you, I listened to a little bit of that radio segment, and it was very cut and dry. I mean, he wasn't super impassioned or, he wasn't really dogging Aaron Rodgers, but he basically said, listen, we have not been given guidelines on how to vote. And some people are going to vote where all they look at is performance on the field, metrics on the field. And if you just look at those stats, then yes, you would probably vote for Aaron Rodgers MVP. And he said a lot of people are going to vote Aaron Rodgers MVP and he will likely win. He said, but that's not how he chooses to look at the vote. He looks at how he is, been for and with his team, both on and off the field, how he's been to the fan base, how he's been to the public. And he felt that Aaron Rodgers, in his words, misleading the public and his team about his immunization status was a horrible thing to do as the leader of the team. And although it's not exactly his stats on the field, he feels like that still counts, and that is going to factor in his voting. And it's going to be interesting if, these voters next year are given guidelines based off this statement that says you can only make your vote based off of a stat sheet, so that's going to be interesting too, to see first, if he gets in trouble for indicating, you're not allowed to say who you're voting for, but for indicating who he's not voting for, and indicating that based on what he's heard, Rodgers is still likely to win the title, which I don't think is going to come as a shock to a ton of people, but he probably said more than he should have. But I think what's interesting is that you're getting an inside view of how some of these people choose to look at the voting and understand the voting and whether or not it's going to be changed next year. I don't think he was overly nasty or, really dogging Aaron Rodgers. He was basically just saying, this is what I'm taking into consideration for my vote and why I'm voting this way. But yes, Aaron Rodgers wanting to not be canceled and complaining on Pat McAfee about being canceled by the woke mob, and then turning around and canceling someone and calling them a bum is a little funny.
It's immature.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing that I will say about Aaron Rodgers is, as great as he is on the field, he's a toddler and he acts like a toddler. And this just backs it up. Act like an adult. You want people to respect your opinion and listen to your opinion. But if someone has something that is anti you or is calling you out for something, act like an adult. Don't be who everyone already perceives you to be anyway. And that's my biggest problem with all of this. And I'm curious to see, of the 50, how many think like Hub Arkush.
Yeah.
Because lying about being vaccinated in that situation put a lot of people at risk. Whether or not you agree with the COVID and the vaccination or not, he lied about it. He put people at risk. He put his team at risk. So I'm curious to see how people, the voters, respond to that. Because the one thing about it, just like the Hall of Fame voting for the Hall of Fame for baseball, any award is subjective. As you said, as Habarkush said, there's no guidelines for how to vote and what to take into account for your vote. It's subjective. So how one person perceives it is going to be completely different from somebody else. That's why I at least I appreciate what the Pro Baseball Hall of Fame is doing by making ballots official for the people who actually do it. There are still some who go anonymous.
Right.
And that's what I wish that the NFL would start doing, is being transparent with how people vote and why they vote the way they do. And I appreciate what Hub Arkush did. I don't necessarily agree with it about the route that he went to take it. And he's since come out and walked it back and apologized. But I mean, this is what happens with subjective stuff like this. People will say, well, it doesn't matter what he does off the field. Okay, but he put his team at a disadvantage by doing it. Doesn't that impact what happens on the field. I mean, it's just it's always going to be subjective until there is a set stringent thing of you can't take things off the field into account for your vote for MVP. And until that happens, they're going to take it into account, just like with the Hall of Fame for the baseball, for baseball, for example. Curt Schilling, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens. All three of them are probably not going to get into the Hall of Fame because of things that they did off the field, but also on the field. So it's a very interesting situation.
It is. And I think too, I think the timing of this radio interview was probably what was problematic, because he did it before the vote, right? So you're giving indications of how the voting is going before the vote actually takes place. And that has a lot of implications, right? So I think if we got this interview after the vote and he said, hey, yes, Aaron Rodgers won. I knew it was likely that he was going to win. I personally did not vote for him that way because of this. It could have been a different story. Again, personal, everyone has their own opinions on this, but I don't think he deserves to be canceled. I felt as if he went on this interview and gave a pretty decent explanation for why he chose to vote the way that he did. Aaron Rodgers, obviously being the person that's getting voted on, doesn't agree with it, but it's all a mess.
It is. And that's welcome to the NFL this season.
Welcome to the NFL.
Been a mess.
All right, let's take it to Fantasy Island. This one's going to be a quick one, basically, because your fantasy seasons are over. So Ian and I just wanted to say that if you won, congratulations. And hopefully one of our little tidbits each week helped you get there. But if you didn't win, like us, there's always next season. You should try again. But yeah, we hope you won some extra money this season and made that long draft process and choosing your lineup every week that much more worth it.
I will say that I played in the money game. I wasn't in the championship game, but I played in the consolation, or in my league, what we call the toilet bowl. So I lost and I didn't even get my money back. So that's how my fantasy season went.
We are not winners in this household either. So don't feel bad. Again, there's always next season. But okay, let's wrap it up. We have 2 more segments and we're going to take it into promo party. Okay. So yes, we know this is a football show. We discuss football here, but this is a really cool promotion from Caesars Sportsbook. They have actually run this in the past for football season. They are bringing it back for NBA season. So it is their bet $100, score a free jersey promotion. I think this is very unique, very cool for fans out there that want some gear. So if you are a new customer to Caesars Sportsbook and you opt in, keywords, you got to opt in for this one, to this promotion using the code LEGALRF and place $100 on NBA games, in bets on NBA games now through January 19th. So $100 cumulative. It doesn't have to be on a single game. Caesars will send you a $150 gift card to use at the NBA store so you can buy a jersey or whatever fan gear you want of your choice.
And DraftKings has what I feel is what you would see at the beginning of the season. At the end of the season, they're offering bet $5 on any NFL money line game and win 200 in free bets if your team wins. And it's not, I wouldn't say as good as FanDuel, since FanDuel does actual real money cash, but as I've said on this show prior, the 200 in free bets and the fact that they break it up into 8 $25 bets allows you a lot of flexibility to explore the app and to try it out, try new things, potentially bet on wild card weekend. As I said in my story at playcolorado.com to talk about this DraftKings promo, wild card weekend is considered the best sports weekend of the entire year because you're loaded with nonstop football. You'll have, and now there's games on Monday. So it's a 3-day affair now for wild card weekend. So what better way to enjoy wild card weekend than with some wagertainment and a $25 free bet? but it's a great option to test out the app if you haven't used DraftKings before. And if you go with what you feel is a lock, you listen to your gut, put down $5 at least, and you'll win 200 in free bets.
And I just, as a casual bettor, I love this so much more than the standard $1,000 deposit offer. It is so, you're not putting a lot up. Like you said, you only need to put up $5 to potentially get this $200 in free bets. So your potential to really secure the full value of this promotion is so much higher than their $1,000 offer, where you have to kind of churn through it over 90 days and really wager quite a bit of money to unlock that $1,000. So I have always recommended, especially with DraftKings, who they are so good about releasing these rotating promotions. We've seen the bet $1 win 100. Like you said, now they're ending the season, bet 5 win 200. If you are a new user to DraftKings and you are a casual bettor that wants to maybe do 50, 100, 200, whatever your bankroll is, wait around for these promotions, because these are going to be so much better value for you than the standard offer, and they come around all the time. So just be patient. I'm with you, Ian. I really like this one.
And that's what I like about it too. Some people like the risk-free bets where they do a deposit match. I'm more of a casual bettor where I'm with you. I like the ability to have the free bets, and we're going to get them. I have no doubt around March Madness, start of baseball. And then again, there's 26 sports betting apps in Colorado. So at some point, if you haven't signed up for the major ones, wait till the start of the next NFL season to look for the best offers, and college football for that matter.
Yes.
So if you're a casual bettor, I would wait for those moments, because this is typically at the end of the season, beginning of the season is when they have these kinds of offers for the casual bettors.
Correct. They're trying to capture that first time NFL betting audience. And then at the end of the season, they're trying to capture that audience of people that are going to be betting on the Super Bowl, for fun. So this is a good time to look for those offers. And like Ian said, if you're kind of a March Madness, or if you're a basketball bettor, they'll have some for the NBA season. But if you're not, and you just want to focus on NFL, just be patient, wait for some of these offers. But all right, prop lock and drop it. Should we take it to our picks? It's been so long since first of all, I didn't even make a pick last time because we were in the midst of a huge COVID outbreak in the NFL. Sportsbooks were kind of reeling. They didn't even have, I believe they had 2 games on the board. One of them was a Saturday game, because if anything, COVID gave us Saturdays of football, Tuesdays of football. I mean, we've had weeks where we've had football almost every single day, but yeah, we didn't have a lot of lines on the board. So I said, you know what, instead of forcing something, I'm just going to take a step back. I believe you did make a pick. Do you remember how that was graded?
I don't actually remember what I picked. And I think it was just, if they
go back in the archives.
Yeah, we'll have to go back into the archives, but it was, if they play, this is how I was thinking.
That is correct. It was an if. So you didn't even really make a pick either. Yeah, you hedged it. All right. So we're coming off of about 3 weeks of no picks. So I'll go ahead and kick it off. This week, I'm going to take Jets team total points over 12.5 at -115 on DraftKings Sportsbook. They are going up against Buffalo, and it is going to be cold. I understand that. But the team has put up 24 plus points in the last 3 games. So I feel like this number is a little low. Obviously don't think that they're going to win against the Bills at all, but I do think that they could potentially put up 2 touchdowns. So that is going to be my prop pick of the week.
And I'm going to go with the Broncos and the Chiefs. And I was leaning between passing TDs or passing yardage. And I'm going to go a little bit risky, but I think it's because of the value right now at DraftKings as we speak. The over-under for Patrick Mahomes passing yardage is 270.5. And that's a lot. That is no doubt a lot. But I think, as I've said on my podcast for the Broncos and on my preview at playcolorado.com, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to come to Denver ticked off. because they just lost to the Cincinnati Bengals and potentially lost the number 1 seed because of that loss. They want to get rolling and head into the playoffs on a good note. So I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes over 270.5 yards passing at -105 to happen on Saturday.
Okay. I like it. And as we end this segment every single week, when we're not on vacation and we are on the air, if you are betting, good luck. We hope those wagers hit. And if you're not, enjoy watching football this weekend, and we will see you next Friday. Bye, everyone.